You have a personal experience. You think you've witnessed something paranormal. Is it actually real? But it's a personal experience. You alone have witnessed a thing. Is it valid to say it must be a dead person, come back in non-physical form? Why would you jump to that conclusion? Maybe you don't jump to conclusions, but there are other better explanations. Surely those should come first. For some people that's true. They'll recognise where in actuality they could have hallucinated. A hallucination doesn't have to be part of a long-term medical condition. Where they could just simply have bad pattern seeking because they're walking around a spooky old dark location perhaps. Or maybe not. For some reason their pattern seeking is more pronounced. Perhaps something is interpreted in a certain way out the corner of their eye or even in front of their eyes. And so you end up with people claiming to witness things which they probably haven't. There's also the issue of imagination, and some people even promote the idea of imagination in certain meditation groups, and then they think they've witnessed something truly remarkable. I would say an interesting idea of something that actually works, something which is shown to cause some kind of effect on people, is certain sound waves which can cause hallucinations, or certain electrical fields which may well do the same thing. And so people in these locations affected by various phenomena, both personal fear, wild imagination, and of course the actual atmosphere of the location in terms of how it may affect you. These factors could cause you to believe you experience something which is very real. It's very real to you. And even in groups, don't think you're immune to the imagination or hallucination, and indeed interpretation. You think you see something, your light's moving as you're going down a dark corridor. You think you see movement, but it's the movement of the light. And how you interpret that, and you think you see more than you do. So these things can happen very easily. But then a person might say, what about video content? A lot of videos out there are fake, or so low quality you can't make out what's really going on. There was no one else there, as far as you know. There was no person it could have been, according to you. Do we know that's the case? No, we don't. You can keep on saying, this must prove it, this must prove it, but if in actuality you do not confirm these things as being true in your uncontrolled conditions, what's left for skeptics to say? Other than, there's probably better explanations. It could have been a person. No, it must have been a ghost because I choose to believe in ghosts. That doesn't make it real. What you choose to believe, what you choose to trust in, a person you think is honest. That goes for mediums as well. How many mediums, even those who don't get paid, those who are believers, will add into their readings, their messages, claims that they've learnt about you on a personal friendship level, and they call that honest and they claim that's coming from the spirit world, but the only reason they know about a particular instance is because they've befriended you, or they've overheard a conversation which shows the overall problem with the nature of some of these people. But genuine paranormal investigators aren't into that kind of stuff, per se. Some are, but many with a more scientific, rational bent. They try and remain critical of these factors. And they will go to a location, ponder what a thing could be, try and have half-decent controls in place at least. Decent baseline test. Where could there be drafts in a room? Where could there be any number of other issues which could cause some kind of feeling or sensation? Oh, I felt like there's someone rushed past me. No, it's the wind. You know, it's a breeze coming through an imperfect seal on a window frame. So you can find reasonable explanations. Some things are just unexplained. And some people claim to hear voices. Some of the audio recordings seem quite convincing, until you learn the best audio recordings, supposedly of ghosts or some kind of imprint upon a location, they're basically heavily edited. hey, we recorded this and we found great evidence. When we went back to our computer and edited it to make it sound more like a voice, it sounded like a voice. What a surprise. That's the problem, isn't it? You can make this stuff fit. You can make this stuff seem to be real, even if it is not in fact in any way, shape or form rationally explained as being real paranormal phenomena. It's explained best by what we already know. That's not to say we can't find new things as we continue. We cannot learn new stuff. It's not to say that we are limited in that way. It's to say, what's the most reasonable position with the least number of assumptions? Oh, this must be true because this must be true, and I believe in this, so I'm going to say it's this. Sorry, you've just walked away from a rational perspective in order to play around with belief and matters of some importance to you. And it's all good and well to have things that are important to you, but that is not in any way, shape or form a rational position. It's not a scientific position. It is not a position supported by the actual evidence as it stands. And you might well have a weird noise, but does that prove the paranormal? In fact, many of the cameras and audio recording devices used, they fluctuate to detect things that sound like voices. And so you end up with an internal editing process, even before it goes on your computer, which can detect a dragging foot from a member of your team, a paranormal investigation group, or it can detect a slight wheeze or a breathing issue a person might have, and at certain times, in certain cases, it might sound a little bit like something else. A person might accidentally let out a little tiny yelp without realising it, without registering it, and the people there might think that is now a ghostly voice. And once it becomes established, even when you have your own doubts, because you realise, oh, hang on, that was me letting out a little wheeze because of my asthma. And because it's now established as being somehow paranormal, I won't bring it up. These things do happen. So where is the real evidence for ghosts? Is it from personal experiences? I don't think so. Is it from group experiences? Not really, unless it's truly profound. Because surely if something was truly clear, truly demonstrable, witnessable, if that's even a word, then it would be in some way valuable. But is it still evidence? I witnessed something, but I didn't manage to record it in any way, shape or form. 2 people witnessed this, 3 people witnessed that. Incredibly clear. A person walking up, and it was clear as day. That almost never happens. And when it does, or is claimed to have happened, very often we can suspect some level of fraud. Video content. Surely, if there was a way of recording ghosts on film, it would be as clear as toffee, and there would be no real room for fraud. Yet the videos we get time and time again, which are supposedly evidence of ghostly phenomena, whether it's poltergeist activity or some kind of ghostly manifestation in another way, you end up with the conditions being very poor, the quality being very low, and arguably it is a matter of fakery. With audio, as I've said already, very often it seems to be that there are many cases of fakery and misinterpretation. So what's left to us? Is it the mediums who seem to make things up, give you generalisations, and use evidence which they know from you? Even if they claim to be an honest spiritualist, they learn about a death in your family, and suddenly they're talking about a death in your family during the service or the reading they give you. Isn't there a slight problem in this? Isn't there, in fact, a problem with all of these claims of so-called evidence? Then you can get on to these professional studies or semi-professional studies. Semi-professional events, controlled conditions. Hey, we're going to prove this. Let's have the skull experiment in here. And yet time and time again they failed to actually carry out proper controls. They failed to properly organise things. They didn't record things in many cases because apparently it affects the energy. How many excuses can you make? And then these apologists claim that it's still evidence. And if you deny it, you're just a cynic. Well, maybe because of what you provide, I am quite cynical. maybe because of what you claim is evidential and isn't actually evidence of anything, being a cynic is in fact the best way to be. But I'm not closing off the possibility. I'm saying you need to prove things properly and care about if something is in fact scientifically supported, or if it's merely supported by a bunch of tall tales and interpreted ideas, low quality video, frauds, a lot of frauds out there, or audio content that could be any number of other things. So in other words, I am a cynic when it comes down to the idea of ghosts, whether it's a spiritual being, some kind of imprint, or whatever the case may be, because the skeptical explanations make a lot more bloody sense.